Welcome to another inspirational teaching from the River Church in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. For more information about the River Church, teachings, and ministry, please visit www.riverchurchlive.com.
This, our best Sunday ever. Simply, we are just excited about what God has done for us as a church. We're excited about the ways that He has blessed us across this year as we have moved into this space and just gotten a new children's ministry space, and God is just kind of setting us up. We're getting ready at the beginning of the year to open a clothes closet and food pantry for the community, and different ways to reach out, and God has just kind of blessed us as a congregation. And so we wanted to have a day where we could just celebrate, where we could just be excited about what God has done, excited about what God is at work doing, and invite everybody we could grab hold of to come and be excited with us. So are you excited? Okay, somebody's excited with me. Good. I am glad. So it's our best day ever. Have you had a best day ever? What is your best day ever? I've had several best day evers, I feel like, and they kind of build as they go. And I was going to share a couple with you. My first best day ever that I remember has to do with the first picture they're going to show right up here in just a second on the screen. It was this. This was my first best day ever. It was. I'm at the bottom of that pile behind some people right there, because that's where big people like me belong, is at the bottom of the pile. And this was when our football team, my senior year in high school, we beat undefeated Thomasville so that we could have a perfect 10-0 season. It was the best day ever. The field flooded with people. They rushed the field. North Davidson had a big win like that on Friday night this week. So that was my first best day ever. Second best day ever. I was a tad younger than I am now, and seemed to have a good bit more hair than I have now. Interestingly enough, that was a fun day. Allison and I, man, we were kids, weren't we? We were just little kids at that point. The next best day ever, I actually had three of these. This is the first one with Joshua. He's 12 now and as tall as his mom. So that was definitely a long time ago too. I had less hair at that point, but at least it was still brown. That was, and I've had three best day evers like that. What is your best day ever? Best day evers are days that we want to celebrate, where we want to be excited, where we are just full of life. And today we're going to open God's Word and talk about. There's actually a chapter in the Bible of best day evers. Did you know that? There's a chapter in the Bible of best day evers, and it happens to be my favorite chapter in the whole Bible. And so if you've got a Bible, I'd love for you to turn with me to Luke chapter 15. If you don't have a Bible, no worries. We're going to put it up on the screen behind me. I'm reading from the English Standard Version today. And I'm going to pray, and then I'm going to read actually this whole chapter. It's got three different best day evers. We're only going to really focus on one of them. But I want to read this to you. Let's go to God and pray. Lord, thank you so much for bringing us here today. Thank you for everybody who chose to come this morning. God, it's so wonderful to see every seat full, and to see the place just packed with folks. God, I just pray that you would continue moving in the life of our congregation. Thank you for today. Thank you for a chance to celebrate the goodness of who you are, and to celebrate your great love for us in Jesus Christ. Lord, allow these words on this page to come alive today to us. Allow them to come alive and to cut to the center of us, and to mold and to shape and to encourage and to just pull us closer to you. God, move me out of the way today and speak to our hearts in Jesus' name. Amen. The best day ever chapter, Luke chapter 15. Now the tax collectors and sinners were all drawing near to him. That's Jesus. Now the tax collectors and sinners were all drawing near to Jesus to hear him. And the Pharisees and the scribes grumbled, saying, "This man receives sinners and eats with them." And so he, Jesus, told this parable. What man of you, having 100 sheep, if he has lost one of them, does not leave the 99 in open country and go after that one that is lost until he finds it? And when he has found it, he lays it on his shoulders, rejoicing. And when he comes home, he calls together his friends and his neighbors, saying to them, "Rejoice with me, for I have found my sheep that was lost." Just so I tell you, there will be more joy in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 righteous persons who need no repentance. Or what woman, having 10 silver coins, if she loses one coin, does not light a lamp and sweep the house and seek diligently until she finds it? And when she has found it, she calls her friends and neighbors, saying, "Rejoice with me, for I have found the coin that I had lost." Just so I tell you, there is joy before the angels of God over one sinner who repents. And he said, there was a man who had 2 sons. And the younger of them said to his father, "Father, give me the share of property that is coming to me." And he divided his property between them. Not many days later, the younger son gathered all that he had and took a journey into a far country. And there he squandered his property in reckless living. And when he had spent everything, a severe famine arose in that country. And he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him into the fields to feed pigs. And he was longing to be fed with the pods that the pigs ate, and no one gave him anything. But when he came to himself, he said, "How many of my father's hired servants have more than enough bread, but I perish here with hunger? I will arise and go to my father, and I will say to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me as one of your hired servants.' And he arose and came to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and felt compassion and ran and embraced him and kissed him. And the son said to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son.' But the father said to his servants, 'Bring quickly the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his hand and shoes on his feet. Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let us eat and celebrate. For this my son was dead and is alive again. He is lost and is found.' And they began to celebrate. Now his older son was in the field, and as he came and drew near to the house, he heard music and dancing. And he called one of his servants and asked what these things meant. And he said to him, 'Your brother has come, and your father has killed the fattened calf, because he has received him back safe and sound.' But he was angry and refused to go in. His father came out and entreated him. But he answered his father, 'Look, these many years I have served you, and I never disobeyed your command. Yet you never gave me a young goat that I might celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours came, who has devoured your property with prostitutes, you killed the fattened calf for him?' And he said to him, 'Son, you are always with me, and all that is mine is yours. It is fitting that we celebrate and be glad, for this your brother was dead and is alive, was lost and is found.'" Whole chapter of best day evers. A whole chapter. You've got the man who lost his sheep and he went after it. When he got that sheep is valuable to him, and he threw a party because he was pumped. It was the best day ever. He found the sheep that he lost. The woman lost the coin in her house. She lit a lamp and swept all night trying to find the coin that she had lost because it was so very valuable. And when she found it, yes, you know that feeling when you finally find your car keys? Right? Or is it just me that does that all the time? Right? And she is just, that coin is valuable. So she invites her friends. She's like, let's celebrate. I nearly lost everything, but I found it. And then the story, which we call the prodigal son, which is really a story about a father and two sons. And it has a best day ever in it as well. And that's the story I wanted to kind of unpack for us today. It's actually probably my favorite piece of scripture in the whole Bible is this one story. And you have probably heard that story before. You have probably heard the story before. I just want to unpack it today because the beautiful celebration that goes on for this father's best day ever is just absolutely gorgeous to think about. And then the thing with the two sons, I think, really begins to illustrate for us. Maybe today you're here because somebody invited you here, or you just kind of came in today, or maybe you've been here for a while. But this story speaks to all of us. It speaks to those who are far from God. It speaks to those who have been in church their whole lives. It speaks to every one of us, and it speaks to the nature of what Christianity really is, kind of in opposition to many of the ways that the world views Christianity. So I think this story is absolutely just pertinent to us even today, even where our world is right now. So let's just unpack the story. You've got a man who has two sons, and the younger son comes to him and says, "Father, I want my inheritance right now, while you're still alive." Now, dad's in the room. I don't know how you would respond to this, but I know how I would respond to this. I think my kid might get the beatdown of his life over this. Because what is going on here? What's going on? This younger son is coming to the father and saying, "I want my inheritance now." He is basically saying to the father, I really don't so much care about you as much as I care about your stuff. And I want it now. I'm tired of waiting for you to die. I want my stuff. How incredibly, as a father, how incredibly hurtful this must have been for the father. How incredibly hurtful to his heart it must have been. Not only that, how incredibly embarrassing it would be to do what he does next, which I can't really fathom, because I know that I wouldn't be able to handle this as well as this father does, and in the same manner this father does. This father handles it, and it's really kind of, it's shocking to the people who heard this, or that Jesus is telling this story. This story would be absolutely shocking. And then the way the father responds would be just as shocking as it is to me. Because instead of driving him out of his house, either with a verbal beatdown or maybe even a physical beatdown, the father actually takes the time to divide his property. Now, right there in verse 12, it says, "And he divided his property between them." The word property, this part of the Bible is originally written in biblical Greek, and the word that we translate into English for property is the word bios, which is the same kind of root that we get the word biology from. And what he is actually saying, what the Bible's actually saying, is that this father divided his life. He divided his life, because if you think about it, times were different than they are today. It wasn't like he could just go to the ATM and pull out a third of his bank account. And I did say a third of his bank account because we got the younger son here. The way it works in these times is that the oldest child got a double portion of inheritance, and every other child got one portion. Since there's just two children, one gets 2/3 of the father's estate, one gets a third of the father's estate. So this younger son gets a third of everything the father has. And so he can't go and just withdraw the money. I mean, their wealth is wrapped up in their land, in their animals. It's not wrapped up in paper or numbers in a bank account on a computer somewhere. It's wrapped up in their very life, in everything around them. And so the only way for him to give the son is he's got to liquidate all this property. He's got to start selling off property. And in the community, this would obviously be known. This would get out very quickly, and this would cause a radical embarrassment to the father. radical embarrassment to the father. He is having to liquidate his property, his animals, his belongings in order to give over a third to his younger son. Incredible cost emotionally, incredible cost financially and physically, incredible cost socially the father goes to do this. Now, why is that important? If you've heard this story before, you probably grasp that the father is God. And that the younger son, in many times, is us. Those of us who have run from God. Who've kind of turned away from him and run and gone our own way. And the sense that we begin to unfold already is the Father's heart for the Son and God's heart for us. There is so much love that this Father has for this Son that he's willing to undergo great embarrassment and cost to himself to allow his Son to go his own way. And God the Father has done that for us. At great cost to himself, he's allowed us to go our own way and to do our own thing. Verse 13. Not many days later, the younger son gathered all that he had, and he took a journey. He grabbed everything he could, everything that he'd gotten from his father, and he goes. And when he goes, and he goes all out. He didn't just go and just take a nice little trip and see the Grand Canyon and go over here and see the Hoover Dam. No, he went straight to the Strip, right? Straight to Vegas and straight to the excitement and straight to the grandness of it all, and also to the debauchery of it all. And he goes and he just completely goes wild, right? Younger son gone wild, right here. It's spring break for him, and he's taken off. And he is living it up. He is burning through money like it's nothing, right? He's making it rain. Everything is going crazy. He is having a wonderful, wonderful time with all of his father's stuff. And then what happens? He runs out of money, right? He has such a good time that he's taken everything that he inherited from his father, and he has completely run out. And then a famine hits, bad times hit, and he gets hungry. And so then what happens? He hires himself out. Verse 15, he hired himself out to one of the citizens of the place where he's now at, and he sends him out to feed the pigs. And he's so hungry that he wishes he could eat the pigs' food because he's got nothing. And then all of a sudden it says in verse 17, but when he came to himself, and I think that passage, I think what it means is when he sobered up. I really think that's what it means. When he sobered up, he realized what exactly had just happened. He realized that he had taken everything from his father and he had just wasted all of it. And now he's got nothing. And so when he sobers up, he realizes, listen, I've got nothing. I am starving to death. There's a famine in this land. I've got to do something or I am going to die. My father has hired servants. They're not slaves. They're hired servants. They're like craftsmen. They live in town. They make a wage. They come and they work for my father. I've got to do something. They've got food. I've got nothing. He knows that the rabbis have taught, he probably knows the rabbi teaching, that when you have shamed the community, when you've done something awful to the community, that in order to come back, you have to repay the community what you've done to them. And so he's probably understanding that what I can do, I can go, I can hire myself out, I can make a wage, and I can begin to pay my dad back. I can't pay him back everything that he just gave me, that I just wasted, but at least I could pay him back a little at a time, and maybe he would just allow me to come and to work for him, not be part of the family anymore, because there's no way that's going to happen. I don't have enough money to repay, but if I could just come and work for him and eat and live and not die. And so he rehearses this in his head, right? I don't know about you, but I remember being a kid. And I remember when I did something dumb and broke something or messed something up, which tend to happen a lot to me. If you know me, you'll probably understand that, right? And I would like break things and do something dumb. And my first instinct was to hide it. Let's see where my kids get that from. My first instinct was to hide it. Then when I figured out that that couldn't happen, my next thing was I began to rehearse my story of what I was going to do that I had just broken this thing, right? And I would rehearse it in my head. And I still kind of rehearse conversations in my head every once in a while when I want to say something, right? I'm rehearsing it in my head. Okay, I'm going to go to them and I'm going to say this, and this is what happened, and here's what I'm going to do. What I'll do is I'll wash the dishes, and I'll do this, and I'll do this, and I will pay you back for this. And I can see the younger brother rehearsing this in his head, right? He repeating this phrase over and over again. Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you, and I'm no longer worthy to be your son. If you'll just let me be one of your hired servants, I can start to pay you back some of the money that I took and just pay back some of the brokenness that I've caused, and I can live. Can I just be one of your workers? I know I can't be your son anymore. And I can see him rehearsing this as he's walking back. I can see this being the dominant thought in his head as he's making the journey back home, and he's walking and is walking. And now he's still a long way from home. It says he was far off. He's still far off. And what happens? Here's where the story just turns, and it's just beautiful. It's just beautiful. The story turns. Verse 20. And he arose and came to his father, but while he was still a long way off, what happened? His father saw him. Now, those guys back in the sound booth there, you don't have to turn around and look at them, but they're a long way off. If I'm over here going about doing my own thing, checking out the keyboard and making sure the bass guitar's here, I'm not noticing the guys in the sound booth. I might be noticing a couple of you over here, right? Okay, I see the Tilly girls over here, and I'm walking this way. I may notice Miss Tina on the front row, right? Just a little bit out of the corner of my eye, but I'm doing my thing. I'm going about my life. I definitely don't see a long way off. I definitely don't see a long way off. So something is going on here, right? With the Father. What's going on with the Father? If he is able to see his son who is coming from a long way off, what's going on? He's looking for him, right? He's looking for him. The Father is actively looking for the Son. He wants to see him. He is looking for him. And then what happens? This is probably the craziest thing in the story in many ways. Because what happens next? In this story, you've got a father. He's an important guy in the community. It's a patriarchal society, meaning the father is he is the guy. The father never lowers himself. The father never disgraces himself in this kind of community. And he would never do the things that are about to happen next. Because what happens? When the father sees him a long way off, what happens? He runs to him. He has compassion, fills his heart, and he runs to him. Now, y'all, he isn't wearing his New Balance tennis shoes and doesn't have his jersey shorts on, right? And his quick dry shirt. He's a person from the Bible. He has on a robe, right? We got a dude in a robe. Now, us dudes don't really realize what it's like to run in a robe. Most of us don't, at least, right? But you ladies understand what it's like to run in a robe or a dress, right? Is it easy to run in a dress? Not with a long dress, right? I mean, if you're wearing like a dress around here, maybe it's easy to run. But it's a long down by your feet, like his robe's going to be. What do you got to do? Right? You got to reach down and grab the bottom of it and hold it up. And so here you've got this dad, right, with adult sons, so he's got some age on him, who's reaching down and grabbing his garments and going, and there his old man legs are showing and who knows what else while he's running down through the land to his son. He's completely left all decency behind him. He is so excited that his son is there. It's the best day ever, y'all. His son has come back, and he's so excited that he throws caution to the wind and let everything hang out and ready to go, right? So he pulls it up and he runs towards him. He completely embarrasses himself. He goes and he throws his arms around his son and he kisses him. This does not seem like the behavior that would happen for this son who's gone off and wasted a third of the father's property. Right? I mean, the people are expecting him to come back, and for the father to not really be caring, and for him to come back, and for him to give his rehearsed speech, and for the father to look at him and slap him. That's what the readers of this story are expecting to happen. We kind of have the distance of having heard this story over and over again, but that's what the people who first heard this story are expecting. But what happens is absolutely, completely opposite. The father embarrasses himself to show love to his son that he's looking for. And he throws his arms around him and he kisses him. And then right in that moment, here the son, he'd been rehearsing the thing. I'm going to tell him I'm not worthy to be his son anymore, right? I've sinned against heaven and before him. I'm a bad person. Can I just work? And he gets to, Father, I've sinned against heaven before you. I'm not worthy to be called your son. And he starts the rest of it to say, and I want to be, and the father just cuts him off. Right in the middle of his rehearsed speech, the father cuts him off and calls to his servants and says, y'all, come on, look, my son is here. My son is here. Quick. Go and get the best robe and put it on him. This guy's been working with pigs. He's been traveling. He's a mess. And he's saying, look, come and cover my son's nakedness. Come and cover his nastiness. Go get the best robe. Who does the best robe belong to in the family? It's a patriarchal society. It's not the mom's robe. Like today, right? It's the father's robe. It's the father's robe. He's saying, go and get my best robe. Go and get my stuff and put it on him. Get my best robe and put it on him. Go and get a ring and put it on his finger. What does that mean? A ring here is not just a fancy thing. Ring signifies that he's able to do the business of the family. It's like a signet ring. It's like the rings that they would use to put stamps on in the Middle Ages so that they could seal a document that it belonged to that group. Right? He's saying he's back he's back in the family business. Get the ring and put it on him. Go get sandals and put it on him. Who wears shoes? Do the servants wear shoes? Do the slaves wear shoes? The family wears shoes. Go get the shoes and put it on him. Right? The father here is covering the iniquity. He's covering all that the son had done when he went away by putting the best robe on him. He's covering over, if you will, the sinfulness of what he's just done. He's covering it with his best robe. He's saying that you are back in the business. You have rights to what I have. And he's saying you are part of the family again. Complete opposite to what the son had just rehearsed, right? You don't have to work your way back into my graces. You are my son, and I love you. Welcome home. You're part of my family. I'm going to show you that you're part of my family. Now, back to the sense that this story is about us. No matter where you go and no matter what you do, no matter how far you turn and run away from God, no matter what you have thought, no matter what you have done, no matter what you have said, there is a God in heaven who created you and who loves you unconditionally and is ready to welcome you back into the family with open arms to hug you and embrace you and kiss you. In fact, he is ready to embarrass himself and take great cost. And that's what happens when Jesus goes to the cross, is that the Father allows his Son to take on all of the messed upness and all of the brokenness and everything that you have ever done. And he is taking it and he is covering it like the robe with the blood that Jesus hangs on the cross with, shed to forgive everything that you have ever done, even the worst possible thing in the back of your mind that absolutely nobody knows about. God has forgiven you for that in Jesus. And he has said, you are now have the inheritance again. He's put the ring on your finger. And he has said, and he has put the shoes on your feet and said, you are my family. I've adopted you in. Welcome home. And then one day, we get to experience what the younger son experienced that day, which is the best day ever. Because what did he do next? They killed the fattened calf. You're like, okay, they killed the fattened calf. Cool. We kill the fattened calf every day. We go down, we get some ground beef from the grocery store, get a pound and 1.4, I can never get like 1.00 pounds of ground beef. I can only get like, and I can't get 1.5. I can only get like 1.2 or 3 or 1. I can never get, have you ever experienced that? It either calls for a pound or a pound and a half, and I always get somewhere in the middle. So I always skew big, right? All our things are like overcooked with ground beef when I go to the store, right? We're used to being able to eat the cow whenever we want to. We're used to that. It doesn't cost, it costs a little bit, right? We go down, we happily give $6 for a pound and a half of beef, right? And we get it and we eat it, right? At least that's what happens right now before it gets worse or better, whichever, according to the cow market. I went to the cow college down in Raleigh. I know about this stuff. No, it doesn't work that way. In this society, what happens is you normally don't eat meat. That's why the younger son is just so ticked off when he hears about the fattened calf, right? In this, they would normally not eat meat at any meal. Normally, your normal week would have no meat in it. It would just have stuff in it. You'd be eating vegetables and grains and fruits. That would be the consistency of your diet. On a special occasion, you might kill a goat. On the most important day of your life, you would kill the fattened calf. It's like a once or twice in a lifetime kind of thing. It's that kind of value of celebration. And it wouldn't be just your family. If you kill the fattened calf, you're calling the whole town in, because this thing is a big deal. You are laying down some dough. You're laying down like a year's salary at this point. You're saying, I'm getting ready to throw a $30,000 party. Y'all come. That's what's going on. It's not just a barbecue, right? It's not just we're going to cook a pig or something like that. No, well, they wouldn't have done that anyway. But anyways, it's like I'm getting ready to waste my entire salary for the year on a party. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome. Because I love my son and he's home. I thought he was dead. He was lost. I thought he was dead. And look, he's alive with me. And friends, that the heart of this passage is the Father's love for his Son. And the heart of this passage is the Father's love for you. And maybe you need to receive what the Father has done for you in Jesus and realize the love that God has for you today. If you haven't been in church in a while, and maybe you've been out of church for a reason for a while, and you look at this and you say, yes, I've heard this story, I've heard of God's great love, but my experience in the church has been different than this. My answer to you is yes, you're probably right. Unfortunately, you're probably right. You see, too often as the church, we get too really concentrated on the rules and what you have to do and what you can't do and what you should be doing and what this person should do and this person should do. And look, this person's really messing up, so we're all not going to look at him today. And some of you have experienced that in your life. You've gone through brokenness and you've gone through things that maybe you wish that you hadn't happened, but they happened in your life. And the church that you were in, it just turned on you, it seemed like, because of what you did. Or maybe you grew up in a church like that and you saw that effect on your parents or on someone else. Maybe that's the kind of church that you're used to, and maybe that's the kind of church that you've seen, and maybe that's the kind of church that the world talks about when it talks about church, because the world talks really ugly about church. I've noticed that. And a lot of times the world is right. And that's the reason why Jesus wrote this story to two sons and not just one. Back at the very beginning of chapter 15, I said to you, who was in the audience? We're not going to go back to that, but in verse 1, who was in the audience? In verse 2, tax collectors and sinners. So you got people who have run from God. These are people who are going to be identified as people who have run. These are the younger son. But then it also has another group, Pharisees and scribes, who got mad that Jesus would eat with sinners. Who are these two guys? They're the older son. What are Pharisees and scribes? They're the church elite. They are the best the church has got. They're the church elite. And Jesus, after he talks to the people who are far from God, he talks to the people who think they are close to God. And what happens with the younger brother? The younger brother hears the music and the dancing. He hears the $30,000 party, and he wants to know what in the world is going on. And he calls one of his servants and said, "What is going on at home?" And they're like, "Hey, your brother is back, man. And your dad is throwing the party of the year because of it." And immediately, the older son is just completely ticked off. Why? Why is the older son mad? The older son is mad because everything the father has at this point belongs to who? Eventually. Him, yeah. The 2/3 that's left belongs to the older son as soon as dad croaks, right? And so he goes back and he is mad. And he won't go into the party. The whole town's there. And he won't go into his dad's party. And everybody sees him standing outside. Again, embarrassing. Someone else now is embarrassing dad, right? And so dad comes out and he's like, "What's going on? Your brother's here. Let's go inside and party." And what does the older son say? Does he say, "Dad, this isn't fair"? Kind of says that, but it gets even worse though. Does he say dad? Does he say father? He says, "Look." Verse 29. He says to the father, "Look." Now, I've had my son talk to me that way once. "Look, many years I have served you, and I never disobeyed a command. Yet you never gave me a young goat that I might celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours, who has devoured your property with prostitutes, comes home, you kill the fat calf for him. You throw the party of the year for him." This begins to reveal something about the heart of the older brother. The crazy thing is the older brother is just as lost as the younger brother. That's what's getting revealed here. Because what you see here in this exchange is that the older brother wants the father's stuff more than he wants the father. Exactly like the younger brother wanted the father's stuff more than he wanted the father. Right? The younger brother said, "Hey, I wish you were dead. I want my third of the stuff. I want to get out of here." Right? We understood that. The older brother's saying the same thing. He's just going about it a different way, right? He is following the rules so that he can get the father's stuff. Is his relationship with his father what's important, or is getting the father's stuff what's important to him from what he said here? Getting his stuff. He doesn't care about what his father cares about. He cares about his father's stuff. "Look, you're giving away my stuff, dude. You're giving away my inheritance. I don't care about that guy. He went off and lived crazy and wasted everything and took it and embarrassed you, embarrassed me, embarrassed us, embarrassed the family. I don't want anything to do with him. Why are you giving your stuff to him? Why are you giving my stuff? You haven't even given me a goat yet. You're giving him a cow." What Jesus is saying is he's throwing a dagger into the knife of the Pharisees right here. And he's saying to you guys, he's saying to them, he's saying, "Listen, the church is not about you doing the right thing in order to get my stuff, to get the Father's stuff. It's not about you following the rules enough that you get to heaven. Because listen, when you're doing that, your heart is wrong. Your heart is supposed to be for the Father, not for the Father's stuff. And so you're just as lost as the younger brother. You're just as lost as the sinner and the tax collectors. And so when we in the church begin to make choices where we're choosing what is right, we want to be people who are about truth. But when we replace the rightness and the rules with who God is, we have totally messed up. Because you can't do enough right things to get to God. Just like you can't do enough wrong things to get to God. Look, both of these guys are doing the same thing. Both of them are. They both want something. The younger brother is using freedom to go get it, while the older brother is using the rules to go get it. And the Father is saying, I freely give it to you. Just come to me. Just come to me. And so the message here is not for just those far off, but it's for all of us. The heart of the message is that we seek God, that we seek the Father. And when we seek the Father, He welcomes us into the party. He welcomes us into the family. And one day, every one of us is going to experience the best day ever. Because God sees the brokenness of this world that we have caused. Back in the beginning when He created it, He said it was good, and we messed up. And we live in that sense of messed upness. But one day, God is going to restore all things to the way they're supposed to be. That's the heart of Revelation. All the crazy stuff and horns and things and all that. The heart of it is get to chapter 21. Behold, I see a new heaven and a new earth. The new Jerusalem coming down out of heaven. And God will be with us. And He will wipe every tear from our eye. Right? The heart of this thing is that God loves you and welcomes you home into the family, no matter who you are. Outside the church or inside the church. And our heart inside the church should be that of the Father to welcome. We should not be the older brother who is pushing away. We should be the older brother who should be out searching and bringing people in. That's what we're about as a church. You saw that thing that swirled by at the beginning on the little video. We're about every man, woman, and child in this community. Seeing practically, hearing with our voices, and having opportunities to respond to the love of God in Jesus Christ. That's why we do what we do. It's why we have Best Sunday Ever. It's why you're here today. It's why we're going to meet the needs of this community. It's why we do everything that we do. It's so that people may know the great love of Jesus Christ. We want you to be part of that. Maybe today you need to make a step into that. Maybe that step is to receive what God has done for you through Jesus. You got that card today? If that's what needs to happen in your heart while the music's playing and we're going to collect the offering, we're going to sing some, mark it on that card, throw it in that basket. You want to talk to somebody about it? You want to make that decision today? We would love for you to talk to you about that. Maybe you're just somebody here and you're like, man, I would love to check this God thing out. I'm not ready to make any commitments. I'm not ready to do anything. Hey, awesome. This is the place for you. We all have questions. We're all seeking God together. This is the place for you. Let's pray.
This is the end of this podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. Join us again next week for the next part of this message. For more information about the River Church, please visit www.riverchurchlive.com.